Hello and welcome to Wait, What? Really? A show where we discuss your religious, church, and theological questions. This is episode 9. The question today is, did anyone else see Jesus after his resurrection? Now, it's a natural question to ask whether a 2,000-year-old claim about Jesus appearing to a large group after his resurrection, can that really be trusted? I mean, especially since none of us were there to witness it firsthand. Is there any evidence? Even outside of the Bible, is there any evidence? Okay, so here's the answer. Yes. In fact, at least 500 people saw Jesus alive, walking, talking, and eating after his death, burial, and resurrection. The assertion that Jesus appeared to over 500 people post-resurrection is anchored in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 6, where it says, "After that he," that's Jesus, "was seen by over 500 brethren at once, of whom the greater part remain to the present, but some have fallen asleep." Now that's another way of the Bible saying that they died. This was written by Paul around 55 to 57 AD. And this statement is part of an early Christian creed dated to within a few years of Jesus' death around 30 to 33 AD. Its reliability stems from Paul's appeal to living witnesses, the creed's early formation, and the broader context of resurrection appearances in the New Testament, making it a compelling piece of historical evidence for the resurrection. Now let's dig even deeper into this. Let's talk about Paul's credibility. Paul, once a fierce opponent of Christianity, underwent a dramatic conversion after encountering the risen Jesus. We see that in Acts chapter 9, verses 1 through 9. His interactions with the apostles like Peter and James, we see that in Galatians 1, verses 18 and 19, gave him access to early Christian traditions. A former skeptic, his testimony carries the weight. Let's consider the early creeds. Scholars across the spectrum, including skeptics like Lidman, agree that 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 through 8, preserve a pre-Pauline creed, likely formed within 2 to 5 years of Jesus' death. This early origin means it reflects the beliefs of the first Christians, including the 500 witnesses spoken of in 1 Corinthians. Now, Paul talks about these 500. So what's the verifiability? Can it be proven? Paul says that 500 of these witnesses were still alive, and he invites the Corinthians to verify the claim with them, suggesting the confidence in the truth. This openness to scrutiny is rare in ancient texts, and it really bolsters that reliability. Let's think about the historical context as we dig deeper. Non-Christian sources, such as Cephas, he writes in the Antiquities of the Jews between 93 and 94 AD. Tacitus writes in 116 AD, and Lucian writes the death of the Pergamon in the 2nd century, and they confirm Jesus' crucifixion and the rapid growth of Christianity, driven by the resurrection belief. While they don't specify the 500, they do support the broader claim of a post-resurrection appearance. Now, from these critical perspectives, some scholars question the lack of detailed narrative about this event in the Gospels, suggesting it might relate to a later tradition. Others propose a collective vision, but psychologists, and through their research, indicates that group hallucinations are improbable for large, diverse groups. Paul's emphasis on the physical resurrection in 1 Corinthians 15, 12 through 20, is further countering this argument that it was all made up. The creed's early circulation and the cultural risk of claiming an individual resurrection in the Jewish context were most expected a general resurrection at the end of time. All of this adds credibility to this event happening. Now, I've already mentioned some of the scripture references, but let me cite them now so you can look them up on your own. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 6. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 3 through 5. And finally, Acts 1 and verse 3. Okay, so what's the practical application of this? Well, it really invites us to trust the resurrection with both our heart and soul. Just as you may not have seen firsthand the Pennsylvania governor's mansion being lit on fire April 13th, you still believed the story was true. You didn't see it yourself. But you can trust the testimony of those who reported the fire happened. Well, the same is here. You can trust the testimony of the 500 witnesses. You can trust that it's been preserved in early creeds and backed by Paul's bold invitation to verify it. If you're exploring faith, dive into these sources with an open mind. They've stood up for centuries and of scrutiny. If you're a believer, share this hope, especially this season with Easter here, maybe over coffee or a chat, or maybe even listening to Wait, What Really, your favorite podcast. The resurrection isn't just a historical claim. It's a promise of new life. Quote, "But now Christ is risen from the dead and has become the first fruits of all of those who have fallen asleep." You see that in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 20. Let's live in that joy. I encourage you to continue this discussion with a local Bible-believing church this weekend. And if you have questions about where you will spend eternity, this is a great conversation starter with a local pastor. Thank you for joining us. And remember, just like this episode, the next episode is based on your questions, comments, and feedback that you provide after listening today. Please let me know your next question in the comments. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, but most importantly, to pray for this outreach. Remember, we are imperfect people being perfected by a perfect God. Please treat others the way you want Christians to treat you and how Christ has treated the Christian.